Okay, so picture this. The year is 1783. A war hasn't just ended, a brand new nation has just been born. And we're going to look at how a few simple words, literally just ink on paper, marked the real official start of the United States. So yeah, the year is 1783. The smoke is finally clearing after eight long years of the Revolutionary War. The fighting has pretty much stopped, but you can just feel the tension in the air, right? It's thick with anticipation. The entire future of this new country is just hanging in the balance, waiting for one official act to make it all real. But that kind of makes you wonder, right? How does a war really end? Is it just when the last shot is fired, or is it something more? Is it that moment when a totally revolutionary idea finally becomes, well, reality? It's not just about signing a treaty. It's about what that piece of paper truly represents. And that's where the proclamation comes in. This was the official act, the one that sent ripples across the entire globe and made one of the biggest political upsets in history official. So what exactly went down? Well, after years of bloodshed, of just unbelievable resistance, and some seriously fierce debate, the world's biggest superpower at the time, the British Empire, finally gave in. So in 1783, Britain— And listen, this is the really crucial part. This wasn't some truce or a temporary ceasefire, okay? No, this was a formal, legally binding, world-changing acknowledgement. They officially recognized American independence. Boom. Just a couple of words, but they literally changed the map of the world forever. The 13 colonies? They weren't colonies anymore. They were a brand new nation. Okay, so an official proclamation is one thing. But what about the feeling? How did this victory actually feel to the leaders who had staked everything, their lives, their fortunes on this? Well, for the three main architects of this new nation, this single victory meant three very different but equally important things. First up, we've got John Adams. Now, this guy was the tireless diplomat. He spent years in Europe negotiating, arguing, and trying to convince people. So his perspective was super personal, but also really philosophical. He was the one in the room making the case for America's very right to exist. And his reaction? It was immediate and it was powerful. He wrote simply, "The United States are free." Now pay attention to that word choice. He didn't say at peace or independent, he said free. And that one word, well, it tells you everything about what was on his mind. See, for Adams, this wasn't some fuzzy, abstract idea. Freedom meant sovereignty. That was the ultimate prize he'd been fighting for at all those negotiating tables. It was about having the legal power to govern yourselves, to act on the world stage without having to ask anyone for permission. A huge deal. All right, next up, the elder statesman himself, Benjamin Franklin. He was the wise, pragmatic voice in the room. He'd seen the awful cost of this long war up close, and he totally got the practical challenges of building a country from the ground up. So what was his take on this huge moment? Just two words: peace secured. That is so perfectly Franklin, isn't it? So grounded, so practical. He's focused on the tangible result, the thing you can actually see and feel. For Franklin, the biggest win was just the end of the fighting. Peace was the foundation you had to have before you could do anything else. It meant the nation could finally stop worrying about pure survival and start the really hard work of building a future. Because without peace, everything else is just talk. And that brings us to our third leader, Thomas Jefferson, the visionary, the man who actually wrote the words that kicked this whole thing off, the Declaration of Independence. So for him, this was the finish line of a huge philosophical journey. And his take on it all? Independence complete. It's just so final, isn't it? It's like saying, mission accomplished. That incredible journey he'd laid out on paper way back in 1776 had finally, after all that struggle, reached its destination. So for Jefferson, it was all about that finality. Independence meant formally cutting all political ties. That wild promise he made in the Declaration, this radical idea of a totally separate American identity, it wasn't just an idea anymore. It was now, finally, a political reality. So there you have it, one single victory seen through three totally different lenses. For Adams, the diplomat, it was all about freedom, the power to act on your own.
For Franklin, the pragmatist, it was about peace, the stability you need to build something new. And for Jefferson, the idealist, it was independence, the final status of being completely separate.
Okay, so we've got all these different perspectives. But what's the bottom line here? What was the ultimate, undeniable truth of what happened? What's the final verdict? It really just boils down to this. It doesn't matter how you frame it or which word you choose to use. America had won. That impossible gamble, it had actually paid off. And the world was never, ever going to be the same. Which leaves us with one last question to think about. For this brand new nation, which of these victories really mattered the most? Was it the freedom to govern themselves, the peace they needed to build a future, or the independence to finally stand alone? What do you think?